I'm Jenny Thomas.
And I'm her friend, Ellie David. We decided to create a podcast that embodies what you would talk about with your closest friends.
So sit back and relax and put your headphones in.
Because you're listening to the Honestly Unfiltered podcast.
Hello, and welcome to a very special episode of the Honestly Unfiltered podcast. When Tino left for filming, his parents assumed he'd be back in a couple of weeks. What were the chances he was going to make it to the final four? In their eyes, it was slim to none. So you can imagine their surprise when ABC producers called and let them know that they would be showing up with a camera crew. But the biggest surprise to them came when suddenly they were all over the news for not being nice to Rachel, or rather, for questioning whether the process will truly work outside of the love bubble. And further fueling that fire, everyone seems to think that Joe is being really mean on social media when he's just being funny and has a dry sense of humor. Now, I'll be honest, leading up to this interview, I was pretty nervous. After all, he did tell Big Tony he had to wait his turn. I quickly realized that Joe Franco is really funny. He just has a dry sense of humor. And he doesn't hate Rachel or the show. He's just misunderstood. And let's face it, aren't most of us? That being said, Ellie and I hope that you enjoy listening to this interview as much as we enjoyed talking to Joe. Thank you so much for being here. I've been watching The Bachelor on and off for since it started. Ellie, my co-host, she doesn't watch it. And she only watched a portion, your portion, that I told her about. And we both agreed that in the process, we felt that your concerns were valid as far as this whole Bachelor bubble and being a concerned parent. So we didn't think that a lot of the backlash was warranted. How do you want to tell us exactly? I mean, maybe your experience or where you want to start with it?
Well, I guess I'd start by saying I don't make any apologies for, having concern for my son. To give you a little backstory, I mean, we never thought he'd last this long on the show. I don't think anyone does. We thought it.
No.
I've never seen an episode and had not seen an episode when they came to the hometown, and we were told, hey, it's better that way. Just it'll be more natural. So we didn't have any expectations, but I did. Like way back when Tino was saying, hey, maybe I'll go on this show. They've approached me about it. I looked at, I went on Hulu and looked at the little episode descriptions. And I said, hey, Tino, look, they're going to Barcelona on a whirlwind trip. And I said, hey, you might, if you last a week or two, you might, we've traveled all over the world. I work for a cruise line. And so we've done a lot of traveling. So I was like, Tino, this could be really fun. And I think one of them even went to somewhere in the South, in the Caribbean or something. And he likes to surf. And I'm like, hey, maybe you'll get to go surfing someplace cool. So that's how it all came. But that's about the extent of me watching it. And my wife. I mean, we're not reality TV people.
Yeah.
So when they came, put it this way, it's all business when they come, they,
oh yeah.
I mean, when Tino went away, it's kind of interesting because you're disconnected from them. And then, we're like, hey, he's not back. It's week 1. He's not back week 2. We still haven't heard from him. We're like, uh-oh, what's going on? And then about, I guess, 6 weeks in, we got a call and they said, hey, we'd like to come to your house. And we're like, oh, really? It looks like we got to clean and get everything all tidied up. And we didn't know what to expect. So they were very helpful and kind of prep you and just talk to you, and they, like I said, they were like, hey, you're better off not knowing. That way you're more natural. I guess I was, and I guess I rattled some people. We brought some reality to reality television. And I think the weird thing is, like, and I don't know if it's my friends just being great to me, but they all were very supportive and said, hey, that's what, any parent would be asking, and
100%.
Yeah. And then, but then I thought to myself, well, why didn't the other parents ask the same questions, and I don't know, maybe my skepticism or, kind of, I think it was more concern for Tino. I know what a genuine person he is. And I thought, if he gets caught up in this, and which apparently at that point he was among four finalists. And, I thought, for him, it means a lot. And if he's going to propose, I think he's going to want to take it all the way. And so it was, I wanted to, I just wanted to kind of, you don't get a lot of time it's not like we had dinner and spent the day together or anything like that. We just kind of meet and it's all business. It's time for the one-on-one interviews. So, we had, in my opinion, we had a good talk. I mean, she could hold her own. She's a very smart girl. She's got a great career. We talked about family. Some of that didn't make it. And, here's two things I'd like to say. Okay. First is, and my friends included, like I said, a lot of them all said they would do the same thing and they would have asked the same questions. And I mean, friends, people, parents of people I coached 10 years ago, and I coached a lot of youth sports and stuff, had texted me. They still had my phone number and they're like, hey, Joe, I saw you on TV, and we would have done the same thing. And so that made me feel good. Like,
Yeah, Ellie and I discussed this just prior to us coming on. We were touching base about it, and she said, as a parent, if my daughter brought home a man, or if I had a son that brought home a girl, we would have been asking the same exact questions. It's you're protecting your child, and what's this bubble they've been in? Yeah,
and it's funny because I'm not sure I totally understood how it works. So.
Now, I'm guessing that you didn't get to speak to him alone prior to them arriving with the cameras.
No, he just walked in the door. It was,
okay.
He walked in the door. We sat down and had a, brief chat. And then, I mean, it's what you saw on TV. Yeah. And then we were, each of us had like some one-on-one time. And we talked about him being the king of cheese and things like that, I mean, he and I really have a sports connection. So, his personal love life, he likes to talk to his mom about. But so,
as most boys do.
Yeah. So, we were laughing about the whole competition. And, it wasn't the thing is, the only thing that really, what was funny about it was it's like we didn't have a game plan going in at all. I think it just spontaneously came out to ask those questions, and it wasn't meant to be, what was interesting was when we watched it on TV, and I've only watched it once. I meant to watch, I was at football games yesterday and then the soccer game at night, so I didn't get a chance to rewatch that episode. But we just went in kind of like, but we just, like I said, we just asked the questions. It wasn't like Sandy and I had a game plan, like, okay, we're going to, go after them. And the funny thing was, we're on the West Coast, so about 6:30 our time, Pacific. I said, well, the episode's almost over on the East Coast. I'm going to look on Twitter. And I just went, uh-oh, I'm like... And at first things were really clever and funny, and then it's like almost like, and it's neat, the passionate following that Bachelor Nation has. I've learned, being in a, kind of for a brief moment being in the public eye, that anything you say they just pick apart, and it's some of it's innocent, some of it, and if they don't know your personality, then things can easily get misconstrued. Yeah. And I think that's part of it. Cause like all my friends were like, that's just Joe talking. And, and they were saying I was they call me all kinds of names, which I got a thick skin.
Which is terrible. I know, but it's still terrible.
Yeah. The only thing that bothered me was the perception that I was bullying her, and because that's not me at all. And that bothered me a little, because I was like, no, like I said, we did talk about other things, and she really, was very bright and could definitely hold her own. I mean, one person commented on my Facebook, a friend of mine, and he said, this is the only time I think she hasn't cried, and so I thought that was an interesting observation, because, I mean, she liked Tino, but I had questions. She also, it's weird. Like, if I had seen the episodes leading up to it, I don't know how I would have reacted, because then you see, she's dating this guy, dating that guy. Mm-hmm. So, and there was one other thing that really threw people for a loop on my portion, was when I guess I said, this is your second go around. And even my sister said they cringed when I said that. And I just meant, this is your second time on the show. Are you,
True.
And I was like, are you looking just for a ring, or are you really, I mean, what are the odds, that you find your soulmate not once, but twice on the show? So, I was, like I said, I think it meant a lot to Tino, and I think he was all in, and he definitely cared for her, and like I said, if we want to talk about it, I got voted down to go to the after the rose. So they said, no, we don't need any distractions, and I was okay with it, because it's not about me, it's about Tino, and he's got a I guess answer for whatever he's done, and that'll all come out, and I think there's a real reasonable explanation.
Yeah,
we feel like we stand behind him, because he's stepping up, and he's taking responsibility. He's accountable. That's the kind of person he is. And
yeah. Well, you're not the first parent that has expressed concern. A prior Bachelor, Peter Weber, his mother was very vocal, to the point where on stage at the final show, she was just completely vocal about a girl he chose, and in front of everybody. There was, Rachel's own father was very vocal when they went to his house with cameras when she was on the Bachelor. So I don't think it's an uncommon thing. I think that they look for drama to pick on, and that's a good portion of it. But I think as a parent, you're doing your child a disservice not to kind of open their eyes to what could possibly happen, so that they're not heartbroken. I out of the two bachelorettes this season, Rachel was not my favorite, just because I feel like she played the victim card the whole entire time. But I don't want to pick her apart either. I've never been in her shoes, and don't know what it's like to be on a reality TV show. Look, dating's 25 men, but there was some time early on in the season where she was whining that nobody wanted to be with her, and there was Tino the entire time, like, I'd leave with you now if you want, but yet she's crying over this guy, that guy, and that doesn't want to, be with her and wants to be with Gabby. So, I question some of her choices, just about wanting a ring, basically.
And I think that came out, like, with this last episode with Avon. She really, was pressing him. Yeah. And I think it's tough on both of them, because you're trapped, you're on TV. I mean, I don't know, if I was Avon, he probably had to sit there and take it. He might have wanted to, I can't speak for him, but, it was a pretty intense discussion. And he said,
well, yeah, no, and previous bachelors who have spoken out, it doesn't always come across correctly, and then they're picked apart in Twitter and national stuff like that.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's been kind of comical. I mean, the stuff I've seen on Twitter, and I look a little bit on Instagram, but I just, like, during the episodes, I just read Twitter, and it's funny. Some of the people are really clever, but some of the people, like you say, the picking apart, like, I think that one episode where in the Mexican Riviera, and it's super hot, and boy, they really piled on about the guys sweating and stuff, and it was just really funny.
It was. How is Tino doing, and how is your wife, Sandy, with an I, and the rest of the family doing with everything that's gone on? Because I can't imagine this was easy for Tino, seeing how things happened, and just, we can't really get into specifics, but, I know there were things that happened, and then he made a choice, and that now she's blaming him for everything, which I don't, if everything I have read is accurate, I don't really agree with on her end. I hear it's like a Ross and Rachel, we were on a break situation, but that aside, how is everyone doing? How is he handling it all?
I think Tino's handling it well. I think at first he was pretty distraught, down in the dumps, kind of, but his concern was for both of them. It was like, well, we don't, he doesn't want to see her dragged through the mud. He doesn't want to see him. It was, I really was very proud of his outlook. It wasn't just all about me. It was about, right, hey, let's make sure she's got the help she needs. The show gave him some support. My wife, poor her, she was the sounding board, for a long time. It really wasn't shared with me, although I kind of knew what was going on. But, it's kind of what you expect. I mean, it's what, 2 months, and then, suddenly you're back in the real world, and it's not this contained thing, and suddenly you're off camera, you're meeting yourself face, in the real world, and maybe it didn't quite seem so magical when you're not in Paris or Belgium or Amsterdam, Mm-hmm. I mean, that's kind of what I said on the show. I said, this is kind of a fairy tale. It's not, and I didn't mean, to discount their feelings or anything. I was just like, are you guys really thinking this through? Do you know where you're at? Or are you just kind of like caught up in it all? Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, and I think it's probably frustrating for these guys as it kind of, I'm sure the girls want to, they don't, splitting the show into two. I think what I've read, especially with the Bachelor Nation people, was very dissatisfying. Mm-hmm. It felt like I saw so many notes where they were like, who is this guy, Jason? Yeah. And, it's episode 8 and we don't know his name or something. Like, they didn't feel like they got to know the people intimately. Mm-hmm. So if the audience didn't, then certainly the contestants couldn't have.
And that's part of the reason why I really didn't watch it this season. I had it on in the background, but it was too hard to follow with who's on what team and who's with this. And it really wasn't until it got down to the final, once they separated and it was down to the final 5, I paid a little more attention. But with everything going on, and then like I said, the episode you were in, it was on and I was watching it, and I saw out of the corner of my eye it wasn't really going well for her, but I didn't think anything of it until later on when I started reading, and then of course I went back and watched it.
Yeah, and I felt terrible the next morning. I mean, film schedules are long and hard, and they weren't at our house that long, but the day started early because I had to take Tino's Jeep out to where he had his get together. Yeah. And I forgot what I was going to say about that, but no, the next day, because we were, you're tired, and there's like an adrenaline going through it first, and then you're tired, and I was like, maybe I was not as warm, I mean, I could see the people saying, hey, he really was abrasive, he was this, and I thought, that's usually not me. It's, and I felt bad about that because I was like, I don't want to sabotage Tino's life at all. He's 28. He can make his own mind. But it's like due diligence, It
really is. And if my son came home in the same situation, I think I would probably be asking the same questions. And I often wonder if other parents don't, and it just doesn't get aired. Because like you said, there was a lot that wasn't aired. And I think the fact that she ran with it immediately and went behind the scenes and said, oh, they hate me, that they really kind of then, okay, well, she's playing into this scenario, we'll go with this in the editing, and it just falls into place. And unfortunately, you were the friendly fire on that one. You caught friendly fire on that one.
Let me say this about that, because, I'm not a reality person at all.
Yeah.
And my friends and just about everyone who I've spoken to all say, oh, well, they edit. And I do have a brother who edits for a reality show, believe it or not. And he told me some stories. But they all kind of blame the editing, but I don't at all. I really don't. I own what I did. I don't take it back. I do, like I said earlier, maybe a few choice words were probably not the wisest thing for a national audience. I was just casually talking. So,
well, yeah, it's, you're getting to know the situation too.
I didn't feel intimidated by the cameras. I didn't feel pressured to be all bubbly and huggy and everything. I just, and I'm, my wife, she really liked Rachel. She came back from her thing and said to me, she's like, I love her. They probably had a really good chat, but think about it. They've got double the couples, and they didn't have time to air everything. So I don't blame the editing necessarily. Yeah. And if we gave them, reality gold, I would use it too. I'm a creative person, and that's, I work in marketing, and, when you edit your photos out, you got your best photos, you're going to go with them. So
yeah, that's
if those were the sound bites, then we gave it to them, and and so, but I look at it, like I say, I haven't rewatched it, but I still I know where my heart was, and it was just, thinking of my son and really her, making sure both of them, because I gave Tino just as much, everyone kind of jumped on me getting on Rachel, but when I was, Tino saying, yep, she's the one, I'm like, really? But I didn't mean it in a mean way. That's just the way I am. No. Like I'm talking to you. I just said, really? But it came, it was interesting.
It's probably shock, because I know have been quite a few contestants that have gone off, and then they come back and they're engaged, and they've never expected it to happen. They tell their family and friends, oh, I'll probably be back in a couple weeks. And they never think that it's possible to make it that far. I know they put them in an environment that's cohesive to romance and all of that. So like you said, I believe on the show, anybody's going to fall in love with anybody in that environment if you're off in Paris and this and that. But yeah, the end up is, it's unfortunate how it turned out. And I'm sorry that, you went through that stress with, everything. Because that's, I think as a parent, for me, I would feel bad that I would feel like I caused my son a problem on national TV because I was hard on him. So it's, where I'm trying to say is, I'm sorry that you had to go through that with your family.
Yeah, well, I feel that I feel some responsibility, but not really. Tino he's a very confident guy, which, at first worked for him. And then, once the one guy called him a baby back bitch, suddenly all of a sudden the Twitter people jumped on him and were like, oh, he's a spoiled little brat. And I don't think so. I think that he was voicing a little bit of frustration that, I think when you're in this and you're thinking, hey, I'm making a connection, but then this girl has to go on a amazing date with another guy. He's like, wait a minute, why am I not, getting picked for these things? But they have to spread it around, I guess, and then in the girl's favor to meet the other guys and get, maybe she overlooked something in someone. So I guess if she's going to, try to find the right guy, she has to date a few. So
that is true. I noticed this weekend some of the guys were out and they were putting up signs that weren't favorable to Tino. I don't know quite what that was about, but I guess it can only do with something that happened on the show.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I heard about it this morning, and Tino was fine with it. He said, I think those guys were being idiots, obviously, and they texted, one of them at least texted Tino. I don't remember the name, but said, hey, sorry about that, dude. They were probably just blowing off some steam, and yeah, I don't know. But, I mean, it was kind of odd, kind of childish.
It seems like Tino has a very thick skin, and he's much more mature than the rest of the group.
Maybe.
Personally.
Well, he's done a lot of, I mean, he is mature. I mean, the things he did, you don't really get to know it, but before COVID, he was really, and still to this day, he does a lot of charity work, and he won the Ronald McDonald Foundation Hero of the Year. He raised all this fundraising for cancer, because our youngest son had leukemia and beat it, thankfully.
Yeah.
And Tino, it's funny because all these people dig into your life, and they found these pictures of Tino, and they were all commenting on his hair. His hair was very long, past his shoulders, but he had to grow it out 10 inches so he could, the day after he won the Heroes for Healing, he became the Hero of the Year. He cut his hair. He cut it down to he was bald. He donated his hair to for wigs. Yeah. So that's why he grew it out. I mean, he didn't like it. It was hot, and it wasn't his style. It's more like what he is now. So, that's kind of who he is. And it's weird because he got to go to when we would send our son to the Ronald McDonald House. It's, so it's kind of set up so you can spend time with the other kids who have similar experiences with cancer, and they would let the brothers and sisters go so that they still had a support group. They weren't just out there on their own meeting people. They had someone close to them. And so Tino started going, and then he became close with a couple of the counselors, and he became a junior counselor, then, a full-time counselor. And then someone nominated him to do this fundraising thing, and it was so cool because, I figured someone would know someone with Lockheed or some big aerospace company or something big, Amazon, and that dad would get a donation of $300,000. Well, so I never thought we'd win, and we went to the banquet, and Tino was really proud of it. All the stuff he got people to donate, Airbnbs and this and that and artwork, and we're sitting at a different table from him, and he's with his friends smiling. And when they called his name, it was a really cool, proud moment, because you just don't think you're going to win, and he worked really hard on that and was very proud of it. And it was really special. So, but that's kind of who he is. And even Rachel said something about him donating blood. He still does. He does blood, platelets.
I saw that the other day, yeah.
Because that all kind of ties back to, our youngest son. And, we started donating blood because, we wanted to bank something for him in case he needed it for transfusions and stuff. So.
Yeah. My son, when he was born, he was about 4 weeks old, he was really sick, and ended up in the All Children's Hospital up in St. Petersburg. We're in Florida, and my husband and I actually stayed at the Ronald McDonald House for about a month while he was in the hospital. And that's the one charity I always donate to, because they're just phenomenal there. The support they give, and we were humbled and we were amazed, because we knew that our son was going to go home and live a healthy life, but we saw the kids that weren't going to, and that was just heartbreaking.
It is.
So it's a very special, it's a very special organization. So That says a lot about your son to.
Yeah. And, they've really, I mean, I hope that it doesn't, I think, like I said, like, you were saying earlier about I guess his name's Tony. Yeah, Big Tony.
Yeah.
Because a friend of mine said something about, Big Tony was just as bad as you last season. And
if not worse.
And I never watched the season. Yeah. So, and it's kind of forgotten. No one brought it up on Twitter, and I've read a lot of Twitter. So I figure whatever people thought of us, hopefully it'll pass and it won't hurt Tino in any way. I think, he's, it's kind of funny, like I said, it was funny that they didn't, they were like, well, we're going to after the rose and you're not, in a nice way. And it was just because they didn't want it to be a distraction. They thought, okay, now we're going to draw in, the evil dad is there, and it's not about me. It's about those two kind of, I guess, coming to terms that maybe it's not all that they thought it would be, at least in the relationship arena. So, and it's funny. I'm not much of a poster. My wife's really into, into Facebook mostly, but I did do some stuff just to show a different side that I did, like a little, after they did the tell-all, oh God, the Bachelor Nation, they ripped that show to shreds, that episode. They were like, it's like a big commercial. And I just, the reason why I don't post much like on Facebook is I'm kind of private. I don't have, if I had something to say, I'll say it. But so suddenly my whole mind was going nuts, and they were making so much fun of me and the family. And I wanted to clarify a few things and kind of poke fun at it. Like, they went after my size. They went after my hair. They went after, it was funny. I mean, some of them were kind of nasty. They were like comparing me to a serial murderer that I was like, I was like crazy. And then the funny thing was my shirt. I couldn't believe that. But the funny thing, I just tell you, I'll give you an insider scoop. The funny thing about the shirt, okay, I'm the oldest of 13 kids, okay?
Oh, wow. And
my dad is a Mexican immigrant, and he married a woman in the San Fernando Valley where we came from. And it's really a great love story, but, the parents weren't really approving of the marriage, but they married, and they had one kid, then two, then three, then four, then five. And so I'm the oldest of 13. And about 15 years ago, I had a shirt just like that one. That's a new one. And I wore it to my dad. My parents, they're both alive, have like 35 grandchildren. And so when we get together for Christmas or for Passover or something, it's a big deal. We're Mexican. we're Catholic and Jewish. So anyways, the shirt thing was kind of like I don't know what you would call it. Someone called it like an Easter egg, but I don't think that's what it is. It was just a subliminal message to my brothers and sisters, I guess. That an insider joke.
Yeah, to pay homage to.
Yeah, so I wore the shirt about 15 years. We always take like a group photo. I'm into photography, so we always take a group photo. And one year I wore that shirt, and then the next year I wore the shirt again, and I saw the two photos. I'm like, oh, I wore the same shirt 2 years in a row. So I said, you know what? I'm going to see how long it takes for them to figure out that I wear the same shirt every year. So after about 5 or 6 years, they'd be like, oh, Joe's wearing that mustard-colored shirt. So when I did the show, I went to my closet, and I wear it only once a year. So I saw the shirt sitting in the closet, and I said, gotta do it. I gotta do it. And that's, it's funny because, with all of us, we're all on like this one chat always. And we talk about stupid things, making movie jokes and this and that. And as soon as they showed the trailer for the hometowns and they showed me in the shirt, I had like 17 messages right away.
That's great. That is a great story. It's something my family would do.
Yeah. So to me, when I saw the chat or the text come in, I just had to smile because I was like, okay, they know what's going down, and they've all been great, and we've told them, hey, just give Tino his space. But they're, that's part of the whole thing is, I know they're all 100% behind him. This might be a little disappointing how it ends, Because, he's, we're all human, and they obviously had kind of a bumpy relationship where I guess, like you said, a Ross Rachel thing where they thought they were on a break. And, like I say, Tino, it wasn't like the reality gossip columnist or anything, outed him.
He owned it up.
Yeah, he came out. He came because that's the kind of person he is. He believed you got to have some honesty and trust, and so he stepped forward with it. And several of the other guys. I think that one guy, Nick, was his name. I think it was Nick. One of the
Nick Vile.
Yeah, he was popular, but all those guys got hit with their past and stuff, and this wasn't a case like that with Tino. And he, I think part of it, they would get, I think he gets some blowback for kind of waiting, and I think he was probably, conflicted because there wasn't much to it, but he still felt like it was important to be honest.
Disclose.
Yeah.
Well, and that just shows a lot about his character because, and plus, I'm sure he didn't go into the situation looking for something. It probably was something that unfortunately just happened. But if they couldn't get through that, if she wasn't going to, forgive him for it, then she probably was looking for an out anyway. I can't say because I haven't seen the episode yet, obviously, or know the background, but it seems to me like she was looking for a reason to just cut it off.
Possibly. I mean, and that's the reality of back in the real world. I mean, they're,
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's in Florida. We're in LA, so we're, a 6-hour flight. And so, I think you're back with your friends in your real world and things don't all look the same.
Well, either absence is going to make the heart grow fonder or distance will,
Yeah.
What the saying goes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think, thankfully, like we were saying about Big Tony, any bad, any residual kind of bad press on Tino, hopefully will dissipate. Because in my opinion, I thought he represented very well in the
I felt like he wasn't flashy. He wasn't in it for Instagram followers. I felt like he was there, as they say, for the right reasons. I was really rooting for him.
Well, it was funny. He showed me I don't know if it was an Instagram thing. Yesterday morning, I saw him, and it was really a funny like meme, and it said, "This is Tino Franco. He's really smart and responsible and has a real job." Because some of these other, some of these guys don't have jobs, or they've just got their license doing this or that. And Tino's got a real career going. It's like you said, he's not looking because I guess when we were first doing it, I'm like, "Hey, Tino, you may get a bunch of followers. You might, they might hire you to do this or that. You might make a little extra money." He owns a condo, and he needs to make that payment. And that was the funny thing, is that he moved when we didn't know how long he'd be on the show, so he moved in with us and rented his condo out for a short term, and it ended up being like 8 months. So he was staying with us, and so that's why we kept every time he likes to crash on the couch, and we were like, "He's not here. He's not on the couch." We're like, "What's going on here?"
It must be nerve-wracking also that you don't know where they are and you can't talk to them, and especially if you're close.
Yeah, we had a contact number, and we only used it once just to get his Wi-Fi. The person that was renting the house needed the Wi-Fi password, so we had to go through channels to get to him.
National security.
Yeah, it was weird. It was weird that day because my wife, she's on her phone, and we're watching him like how you find your phone, and we're watching him, and then suddenly it's all off. He drops off, and then that was the last we heard of him for about 6 weeks. I think 6 or 7 weeks.
Do you think if he had to do it over again, he would, knowing what he knows now?
I don't know. I honestly don't. I would say no more than yes. I think time will tell. I think give him 6 months and he'll probably say that was really a good thing. But the way, I'm not saying he came out of this bitter, but it was tough. Yeah, I think he was in it for the right reasons. This wasn't a, it's funny because he was confident and maybe sometimes a little too confident, or they would ask him, "How you feeling, Tino?" "I'm feeling good. I'm ready to," and then people pick at that. It's like, is he supposed to say, "Oh, I guess I'm okay"? He was like, when Jesse would ask him that stuff, he was pumped up, and it's weird. You get all of them got attacked, but I think Tino being in one, getting that first rose, which I didn't even know what that was. That was the funniest thing. I had friends, our company is kind of global, and they were on the East Coast, and they're texting me at like, I guess 7:00 at night on the West Coast. So the show hadn't even aired, and they're like, "Oh my God, Joe, you got the first impression rose," and I'm like, I haven't even watched the episode. And they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I'm like, "What is the first impression rose?" Because we really didn't know any of it. And so,
So you didn't know the outcome when he came home?
We didn't know the outcome till he called us and said, "Can you pick me up at the airport tonight?" Like 10:30. We're like, "They're not sending a car." And, but he had a friend pick him up because we were like, "Really?" And no, we were excited to see him, but then he said, and I was just, and that's the thing. And Tino was very truthful. He knows what kind of parents we are, and the world doesn't know. So we were 100%, we were like, "Okay, Tino, congratulations," and it wasn't like, "You're dead to me" or anything like that. It was, we were 100%. And, we even got on a call. He was FaceTiming her, and, he said, "Hey, say hi to my parents," and and it was all cool. It wasn't like, it wasn't at all like that. And so, in my opinion, I think Tino will look back on it, as a real interesting experience. It had its highs and its lows, but I think the highs will outweigh it. But he needs time to kind of get away from it. And he even said something today. He's just like, only got a few more days, and I think,
to move on from it.
I think he just wants to face the final episode and put it behind him.
Get that over with.
Because he doesn't know. I mean, I'll be honest, watching, her and Zach, and then her and Avon, those escalated pretty quickly, and it's hard. You're out there on a national stage, live television. It's not like, in the real world, you can hang up the phone or turn and say, "I'm out of here,"
Oh, yeah.
But this is, you're going to be in the court of public opinion. If he walks or, if she walks, they'll both be judged. So it's, the hope is that everyone's, got their heads together, and it's a real, because I think that's how Tino feels about it. He's not looking to make anyone look bad, and it's not just covering his butt.
Do you think he would reconcile with her if she wanted to, or has he moved past it now?
That I can't say. I mean, because I don't know, honestly. That I think I don't know where his head's at, but it would be hard to see that happen, to be honest. I just think that and I think you start learning stuff about each other. It's not the very I guess monitored type of thing. I mean, you're mic'd up all the time, so and you have a bad day, and like Tino did that one day where he was, I guess, and I don't even remember what he was saying. He was kind of mumbling, but everyone was saying he was like, "I checked all the boxes and this and that," and
I remember that. Yes,
but
I remember that.
If you're an accountant, you probably think in a certain way, and Tino, he probably was thinking that, he was making some kind of sports analogies, just like, he's very, he does all kinds of biking and surfing, and he's played team sports for many years, basketball, soccer. I think, whatever he was thinking in his head, I don't think it was like, "Oh, this is just a prize to win" at all. I think there were real feelings involved.
Yeah, and I think when you're in that scenario and that's such a bubble like that, he's not the first one to do that. And I think that you start to wonder, well, if she's feeling this way with me, while she's with me, and she says I check this, and this, and this is what she wants. Well, then why are we still here? Why are we still messing around with each other guys? So I get that mindset. At some point, I think as being in the contestant standpoint, being in Tino's shoes or any other the guys in that realm, I think at some point you need some reassurance and some validation that your feelings are valid and that you're going to end up the one if they know in advance. If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
At least I would. I would never do well on one of these shows. I would be crazy.
Yeah, and I think psychologically that really plays, because all those people, on down the line were confident. Some were crazy. I mean, the guy pouring meatball sauce on himself, but they obviously, they got on the show for a reason. So, and
they want to stand out. How did Tino get on the show? I meant to ask you that.
That's a good question. He told me that, and I don't know if this is true, but he said that he was contacted, that someone nominated him off Instagram or something. And, and at first he thought it was like a, what do you call it? Identity fraud. He was like, why do these people want to talk to me? This seems too fishy. Like, how cool, I'll be on The Bachelor or Bachelorette. And so he was a little skeptical, and then he finally talked to him and was like, oh, okay. And, and he debated it. He was like, do I want to do it? Really? It's, but, and I guess maybe I had a hand in it because I went online, like I said, and I looked at episode descriptions and I was like, hey, it could be a fun adventure. Yeah. And so that was really it. We weren't looking like, hey, you could be a star and you could do this and that.
Well, then that's definitely a genuine. That's what any girl wants. I would think that you want the guy that's going on it to actually find love, not to increase his Instagram followers.
Yeah. I think he's been real private about that stuff too. I don't know. He's probably got 10,000 followers, but he's kind of shut it down. Maybe. Yeah, maybe he's up to about 30, but he hasn't and he wrote some really clever. I saw some stuff on Instagram, really funny things like that he did about the show, and with pictures of him and Rachel. He had one where he's kind of like says, hey Siri, play something by Van Halen, and Siri says, now playing something from Taylor Swift. I think it was like Everlasting Love, and he's like, no Siri, no. And okay. It was really a funny meme, and I was like, God, Tino, you really are clever. And but after the hometown, he pretty much I got my posting privileges taken away.
He has 38.9 thousand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they took that's that I find that amusing, just because I know people that would happen to, and you can't help but love them because it's endearing. It's just say what's on your mind. And
well, that's the sad thing is, like, I told you earlier.
I saw your humor in it. I really did. I saw your humor in that post.
And I did see like that some people on, some of the same people that were really kind of crucifying me and my wife actually saw the humor too. They're like, Tino's dad posted again. And the funny thing was the first two posts that I did, I mean, like I said, I usually don't have that kind of interest in sharing, checking in and showing where I'm if I'm at a restaurant having a margarita or any of that stuff. But the local out here, the local entertainment reporter, and he's been on the job like 35 years. After the first episode, and he didn't say anything bad about Tino, but he said, this is the worst group of guys ever. So I kind of made a joke about it, like, hey, Sam Rubin, you owe us an apology. Tino's a great kid. And then I kind of like, that became kind of my tagline. I would be like, come on, Sam, I'm waiting for that apology. And so, but, I was having fun with it. And then the hometown, and, then we kind of took a beating, and I thought that was when I was kind of like inspired. I'm like, okay, you want to say all that about me? I can poke fun at myself just as much. And so I kind of, But I thought some of them were really funny because they were true. They were like, they showed these ones of Captain Kirk or that one of Alana where they were like, but they had these people that were all big, wide-eyed, and they're like Tino's dad. What? There's going to be a proposal? And I guess that was me. I mean, we saw people like tweeting. They're going, I don't think these people have ever seen this show before. And that was where it was funny. And then it just kind of like...
Because you hadn't.
Yeah, and we hadn't. And so, but the people were kind of like sizing it up. But then it's like the people with no imagination just really go for the jugular. And they just, it's almost like potty humor. They just want to be as nasty and put you down as hard as they can. And that probably bothered my wife a little more than me. I have a background. I was a journalist for 15 years with the LA Times, the LA Daily News. So, and that's why I was okay with doing this, because I know how hard you guys work to do things like this and put shows on, and I was surprised no one ever reached out to me at all, for a comment.
Yeah, it's surprising to me. That was completely surprising to me.
I was like, you guys are journalists, these reality writers and. All these ones, and like no one said, hey, do you really hate her or something? It's like, no, we don't hate, I did reach out to one podcast guy because he dissected the top 10. And I just said, thank you very much. I said, don't make a big deal about the Mexican thing. I said, it's just, my dad's from Mexico. He lives there like a good portion of, like maybe 3 or 4 months out of the year in the same house that they grew up in as kids. I mean, it's a town of about 8,000 to 10,000 people. It's really very cool, old world town in the middle of the state of Jalisco. It's probably about 90 minutes north of Guadalajara. And, I was like, I just wanted to set the record straight because Jesse made an honest mistake and said Italian. He's like, he's Italian, he's passionate and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, my dad's watching it and he's not a big fan. I mean, he's not a fan. He's not a reality guy, but he's, and I named Tino after my dad. His name's Justino, which is Justin, so, just for my dad and his brothers, he comes from a family of 6, for all the relatives watching, I wanted him,
Yeah, represented
correctly. Yeah, but then the people on Twitter were going nuts. They're like, "Oh my God, ABC owes the Francos an apology." I'm like, no, I don't want to make this one of those issues.
But I do understand that. I do understand I do understand it's important to get it right. I mean, that's a rookie mistake. Yeah. It's clearly. But yeah, I'm glad you said that because I actually thought Tino was short for Santino.
No. There was an article, actually. It was funny, some of these people, really? What is it? What is his real name? Is it Constantine? Is it this, that? And the funny thing was, it almost was Valentino because he was born on Valentine's Day. And, we're in the labor room with my wife, and we were already set on Justino after my dad. And I really wanted to do that just I was the oldest and I had the first shot at nailing down the name before my brothers and sisters could. So, but she was literally like in labor, and I said, "Hey, how about we try Valentino instead?" And she just looked at me like, "Not on your life." And I was like, "But it's Valentine's Day." So that got shot down, but it probably for the best.
Probably. I'm sure he thanks you for that. Or thanks, yeah.
But that's the story there.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and for spending the time with us. I'm sorry Ellie couldn't be here due to technical difficulties. I know she's going to be disappointed. And please let Tino know that we're thinking of him and we're hoping that everyone gets through tonight, unscathed, I should say.
I think so. I think he's in a very good place. He sees everything for what it is, and he's not a bitter person. I think he like I said, I think he's gotten some time to see things clearly, but certainly it was probably painful for a while, and because
sure.
I think everyone wants to live that dream,
of course, happily ever after, and the story, once you only get the chance, you only get one once you propose, like you only get the first time is always you never. It's the first time is only the first time. It's you don't get that back.
That is so true. I
It's.
I was just gonna.
Nick Vile put it this way once when he was rejected for the second time by Caitlin. He went into this whole thing and speech, and he just started to get down on the knee finally, and she stopped him, and he said to her, I said things to you that I was saving to say to my future wife, and you took those from me. You should have stopped me sooner. But so it's you only get that one shot to say this was my one and only and forever.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I guess I'm a bit old fashioned that way, and that's how I felt like when they came to the house. I'm like, okay, you guys may want to, get engaged, but I was going to ask those questions. I just felt like it was my, kind of duty as a parent to put them,
Yeah,
I hope it didn't come across. I guess it did come across harsh, but it wasn't meant to be. It was just like,
yeah.
We're just, like I said, the lights, the cameras, none of that really phased us. We were just like, it was all about Tino. We were excited to see him. We were excited to see who he walked in the door with. And we were like, because we didn't know who it was. We were just like, we knew it was one of two. We had a 50% shot at who was coming in. So, but thank you again. Like I said,
you're welcome.
Anytime. I'm happy to. It's nice to be able to share a little bit about kind of what happened, my mindset, and and to the Bachelor Nation people, that are listening to your show. I watched a couple or listened to a couple of them just to see what it was like, and I was like, okay, this is the right setting for me. I don't want to be going back and forth about stuff. And they're a passionate group. I didn't know anything about them until Tino got on the show. Then all of a sudden I find out all these friends are like devoted. They have watch parties and football pools.
Yes. They get into it.
So I don't fault them for it, and but now they maybe know a little bit more about what we're about.
Well, we were happy to have you, and anytime you want to come back, we're more than welcome.
All right.
All right. Take care.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Let me see. Hold on. Now I'm having issues on my end. No, it's no. I can hear you. It's my own bullshit.